A day passed before Shen Wei finally woke up again, his body frail and weak. Attempting to stand, he was gently pushed back by Emperor Song Shuan, who had been silently watching him sleep. Shen Wei, exhausted from not eating in days, had little strength to resist. "You need rest. There's no need to move," Song Shuan said, his gray eyes fixed intently on Shen Wei. "How are you feeling?" His voice was gentle, his hand resting atop Shen Wei's. Shen Wei narrowed his eyes, pulling his hand away in silence as he looked away, his gaze drifting to the sunrise outside the window. "Shen Wei." Song Shuan's voice was anxious. He could feel Shen Wei slipping further from him with every passing moment. He knew who Shen Wei was thinking of, his late love, Ahuo, the one he cherished even now. The thought filled Song Shuan with a burning jealousy. "She's still better than me?" he muttered to himself, his frustration clear. With a hardened gaze, he told Shen Wei to eat, his words laced with barely concealed anger. Song Shuan then left, ensuring guards stood at the door to prevent Shen Wei from trying anything desperate. Days passed, each one blending into the next. Shen Wei made it his mission to escape this life by any means. First, he tried to jump from the window, only to be restrained by guards. Then he attempted to hang himself, but there was nothing he could use to succeed. Even in the bath, servants monitored him to prevent any chance of drowning, and sharp objects were nowhere to be found. With no other options, he chose to starve himself, slipping closer to death each day. Looking into the mirror, Shen Wei barely recognized the skeletal figure staring back. He was pale, thin, and looked like a ghost, his once vibrant presence now hollow. "What am I even doing?" he whispered, more to himself than anyone, just to hear his voice again after such prolonged silence. Slowly he staggered back to his bed, each step unsteady. His only desire was to fade away. A knock on the door interrupted his quiet, and Shen Wei didn't need to look to know it was Song Shuan. His tall figure entered, his brown hair falling over stern gray eyes, eyes that Shen Wei had come to despise. "I heard you haven't been eating," Song Shuan remarked, sitting beside him and placing a hand over Shen Wei's. He already knew Shen Wei would pull away, yet he still repeated the same gesture each time. "Please eat. I don't like seeing you like this." Shen Wei said nothing, refusing to give him the satisfaction of a response. The silence that fell over the room was heavy. "I've changed, Shen Wei. I regret the things I've done," Song Shuan said softly, grasping Shen Wei's hands, giving them a gentle squeeze. His tone was breathless, his expression one of desperation. Shen Wei raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. Change? No. He didn't want Song Shuan to change. His suffering was the only thing that might eventually free him. Song Shuan, sensing the rejection, wrapped his arms around Shen Wei in a tight embrace. But before he could say more, a servant entered with an urgent message, drawing Song Shuan away. "I'll be in the throne room. Call if anything happens," he said before leaving. Shen Wei was left alone once more, his only company the tempting aroma of food he stubbornly ignored. He had learned to resist, dismissing the servants who brought food with either fear or disgust in their eyes. But today, someone different entered, a young man, unfamiliar with the hostility surrounding Shen Wei. The youth held out the meal with a smile. "Please eat. I made it myself," the boy insisted, a kind warmth in his voice. It reminded Shen Wei of Ahuo, her light-hearted persistence. After a moment, Shen Wei relented, deciding to eat just this once. Song Shuan's visits had grown more frequent, and if he wanted to avoid that face a bit longer, he could manage a single meal. Just one. Learning about the strange youth was easy. Every day Shen Wei ate with the boy. At first he simply observed, but gradually started small talk. His name was Shu. He didn't share his full name because he had none. An orphan just old enough to work, Shu was kicked out onto the streets and found a job in the imperial palace. He spoke endlessly. "So you have no surname?" Shen Wei asked. The boy eagerly nodded. "Yes." By the end of the meal, Shu had become Shen Shu. The two grew closer as Shen Wei regained his strength, deciding to stick around a bit longer for the lively boy. "Master, you look better than when we first met," Shen Shu said, pouring tea. No wonder the servants were scared. "It's a big change." Shen Wei coughed, feeling self-conscious. "What are you saying? I look the same, don't talk." He waved him off, but Shen Shu persisted. Really, you look different. You're pretty. Shen Wei flicked Shen Shu's forehead. No swearing on your life. Shen Shu sighed. I'm just expressing myself, no need to lecture me. A smile tugged at Shen Wei's lips. Life was more bearable with this boy around. He patted his head. Go. You can't fool around with me. Just as Shen Shu was about to protest, he remembered his chores and hurried out. Silence returned to Shen Wei's room. He preferred it that way. He moved to the balcony and looked down. No guards in sight. Then the door burst open. Emperor Song Shuan entered, wearing his usual friendly but repulsive smile. Wei, good morning, he said, his voice cold. Shen Wei didn't respond, staring at the ground. He contemplated jumping when Song Shuan spoke again. Shen Shu, huh? Does that child interest you so much? Shen Wei froze, fear gripping him. How did Song Shuan know? The Emperor's satisfied smile deepened. You only eat when he's around. What's special about him? What have you done to him? Shen Wei demanded, eyes narrowing. Nothing. Well, not yet. Shen Wei dashed for the door, intent on saving Shen Shu. He ran through the halls, heading to the throne room where captives were often sent. Inside the lavish room, Song Shuan approached slowly, enjoying Shen Wei's desperation. I have not done anything. I simply granted Shen Shu's wish. Irritation crept into his voice as he said the name. If I recall, he wanted to be a high-ranking guard. Shen Wei's blood boiled. Yes, Shen Shu had dreamed of that, but he was too young. Song Shuan had sent him to a training camp despite his age. It was like sending Shen Shu to his death. Where are you dragging me to, boy? Shen Wei asked as Shen Shu tugged him along, excitement clear on the boy's face. Just follow me, master. I have something to show you. Since meeting Shen Shu, the 16-year-old servant with an easy smile, Shen Wei, a reserved man of 23, had grown used to his company. Though Shen Wei usually stayed locked away by order of the Emperor, Shen Shu had taken pity on him, risking his own position to sneak him out. Despite himself, Shen Wei couldn't hate the youth for his kindness. They reached the palace garden, bathed in moonlight. Flowers lined the path to a pond, where crimson water lilies floated gracefully, illuminated by fireflies. Shen Wei knelt by the water, feeling a rare sense of peace, his long, dark hair framing his face. Unknown to him, Shen Shu watched him with quiet admiration. It's pretty, Shen Wei murmured, gazing at the moon's reflection. Shen Shu smiled back. It is. After a long silence, Shen Shu clenched his fists, looking at Shen Wei. Master, I want to become a guard, he declared, eyes fierce. Shen Wei raised an eyebrow, intrigued. And why is that? Shen Shu hesitated, then admitted. I want to protect someone. If I become strong, I can protect them. Shen Wei chuckled softly, knowing Shen Shu was too young yet for the grueling enlistment. But the young man's determination struck a chord. Later, back in his chamber, Shen Wei found himself face to face with the Emperor, Song Shuan, whose obsession kept Shen Wei in confinement. Song Shuan's gaze was hard, his words venomous, as he reminded Shen Wei of his forced loyalty. Your father gifted you to me. Your life is mine to control, Song Shuan said, his smirk twisting with satisfaction. I am nothing to you, Shen Wei spat, his voice filled with contempt. You've taken everything from me, made my life a nightmare. I'd rather be dead than live near you. Song Shuan's eyes darkened. Nothing, he repeated, grabbing Shen Wei's collar and dragging him to the window. He held him dangerously over the edge. You want to die so badly? Then say it. Shen Wei stared back unafraid. Being with you is worse than death. Seeing your face makes me wish I was blind, hearing your voice deaf. You are poison. I hate you. In response, Song Shuan's grip tightened, his fury barely contained. But Shen Wei did not waver, his words sharp as knives. The hatred between them lingered thickly in the air, unyielding and bitter. I hate you. These words echoed in Emperor Song Shuan's mind, gnawing at him. He had ruined Shen Wei's family, indebted them, even killed Ahuo, the one person Shen Wei loved, all to possess him. Song Shuan had convinced himself that his devotion and gifts would make Shen Wei love him back, but the hatred in Shen Wei's eyes shattered that hope. Liar, Song Shuan whispered, trembling. You love me. His grip on Shen Wei's collar tightened, his desperation growing as he stared at the man who had become his obsession. Shen Wei's gaze held only disdain. My heart stopped beating the day you killed Ahuo. Any affection you hear is just a figment of your twisted mind. No! Song Shuan's voice grew frantic, pulling Shen Wei into his arms. You love me, you have to. His hands roamed possessively, clinging to the illusion he desperately wanted to believe. Shen Wei tried to push him away, but Song Shuan tightened his hold, refusing to let go. Suddenly, Song Shuan's lips were on his, fierce and uninvited. Shen Wei recoiled, his body rigid as the Emperor's invasive touch sent a wave of revulsion through him. With a surge of anger, Shen Wei slapped Song Shuan, his face flushed with both rage and humiliation. You bastard! Shen Wei spat, trying to strike again, but Song Shuan caught his wrist. Panting, Song Shuan's gray eyes were wild with obsession. Shen Wei, I love you. I won't let you go. Ever. A sickening realization dawned on Shen Wei. This man's love was a prison. Desperate for escape, Shen Wei seized a nearby sword, its silver blade engraved with the words, Blood brings the spring. He brought the blade to his neck, his expression calm. What are you doing, Shen Wei? No! Song Shuan's panicked voice reached his ears, but Shen Wei was resolute. With a swift motion, the blade cut through, and he fell, a pool of blood forming beneath him. Song Shuan caught him as he collapsed, staring in horror at the lifeless body in his arms. In his final breath, Shen Wei managed to whisper, I hate you. The silence that followed was absolute. Shen Wei's heart had stilled, and with it, any remnants of Song Shuan's delusions.